Welcome back to another episode of Sal and Pals Go to the Movies. I'm here with my friend Touly. Say hi, Touly.
Hi, guys.
And today we're going to review The Shawshank Redemption, which came out in 1994. And just a quick reminder, there's going to be spoilers up ahead, so you've been warned. The movie revolves around two imprisoned men bonded over a number of years, finding solace and eventual redemption through acts of common decency. I'm going to ask you, Touly, first of all, when did you see this movie for the first time?
Oh, wow. When did I see this movie for the first time? Honestly, I didn't see it when it came out, not even in the 90s. I think my first exposure to the film was probably, I would say, somewhere in the 2000s. That's all I can remember. I don't remember specifically what year, but somewhere between 2000 and 2010, somewhere around that time.
Okay, so it's fair to say you didn't see it in the theaters. The same with me. I did not go see it when it came out in the theaters. I think I saw it VHS. My cousin had it, and I think we were over at her house, and we just started watching a movie. But yeah, it to me, it never came up on my radar when it was out in theaters. I think that year, other movies were in theaters and it caught our attention. So yeah. So next question is, what'd you think of the movie?
I thought it was a really good movie. I can easily say that it's one of those movies where I can find myself watching over and over. When I could say something like that about a movie, then I think it has done a really good job. I don't know, this story excels in a lot of ways. I love the pacing of the story, despite it being a little over, 2 hours long.
Yes.
I love the story. It's simple. You can understand, what's going on. You can feel for some of the characters in there, particularly Andy and Red and Brooks, the old guy, what he went through after he left the Shawshank Penitentiary. Tommy, who only appeared for a brief moment, he played an important role as well. And the warden, he's one of those guys who you just love to hate. So,
yeah,
I love the whole idea behind it. I love the pacing, the mood. Like, there's a lot of good things to say about this movie, I would say.
Same with me. Just let's touch upon the characters. Tim Robbins, who played Andy, Morgan Freeman, who played Red, Bob Gunton, who played the Warren Norton, and Gil Bellows, who played Tommy. These people made the movie, and every time I see the movie, I pay attention to one character, and then it makes me feel for that character. The first time I saw it, Brooke stood out to me. Next time I saw it, Tommy stood out. And, every time you see it, you see another character, and it revolves around these characters and how they reach a certain way to redeem themselves. At the same time, when we see Brooke gets let out of the jail, you wouldn't think of this, but they learn nothing but jail. I think it was Red when he got out and he's like, he can't go pee without asking for permission. And I'm like, this is basically like how it is. They're institutionalized. That word it's just never had any meaning to me until this movie came out. All these people who are in jail and they come out, they know nothing but jail. They don't know anything else. For them, while they're inside, time has stopped. And when they come outside, even what Brooks said, he's like, I remember I saw a car once when I was a kid, but now I'm out here and they're everywhere. So for him, when he was inside, time didn't pass. He got accustomed to the daily routines inside, the jail. And now he's outside, and for him, it's too fast. Like, he can't keep up. So then we see what he had to do and his only way out. But yeah, once you think about these people in jail and then you compare it to nowadays, why they come out and then a few months later they're back inside is they can't take it. Either they commit an error, which society doesn't really give these reformed inmates a second chance properly, even though they say they do give them a second chance. So this movie, after I saw it, it made me think of, current times and everything. So even back then and now. Another thing I'm going to touch upon is this movie was based on a Stephen King's novella. And that's a short story that he either wrote for maybe a TV spot or something. The director who picked it up, he actually rewrote the script for this movie. And it only took him 8 weeks to do it. And that's amazing, to turn around an actual book, it was a book, and make it into a movie script. 8 weeks, that's amazing. And he did take a cut so he can actually work on the script and also, be the director of the movie. So it's kind of amazing that this director took it upon himself to change one of the Stephen King's stories into a movie. And by the way, this is one of the top favorite Stephen King adaptations that they made into movies. And that's saying a lot, because there's been a few. Dark Tower, that didn't really give me that impression that it was done properly. And I believe Stephen King might agree that some of his movies are better kept as books than movies. Okay, Touly, so when you were watching the movie, did you get the impression right off the bat that Andy was working on that plan to escape from jail?
Well, the instant he asked Red for that little pick hammer or whatever, the pickaxe hammer, I knew he was up to something, but a part of me felt like it was probably like a backup plan.
Yeah.
Say like things didn't quite follow through while he was in prison, whether in regards to him finally getting released somehow, or maybe becoming comfortable inside the prison, kind of how Brooke was in a sense.
Yeah.
He did find like his quote unquote calling, despite him helping the warden launder money and stuff like that. You know, he did find a sense of purpose inside the prison that kind of was similar to what he was doing, in the real world outside of the penitentiary. But I always felt like his escape plan was always a backup. Yeah, that's how I felt.
Okay, yeah. So when I first saw the movie, when he asked for the rock pick, to me I was like, okay, he's gonna do something. But then I was like, I don't think he's gonna do it, because if you think about it, like he said, that little pick is gonna take forever to dig out. So I kind of like said, okay, this is like a gimmick. They're showing us like, look, he's asking for a pick. Is he gonna break out? And I was like, no, it's too off. But in a sense, like he did it on the down low, and like you said, it was probably his backup plan. So, and I want to think of it like that way, because if you see it, he put up with so much shit inside the jail, being raped by the sisters, and harassment by the guards, even the warden, to the point that he said, you know what, I'm gonna get out, and I already have a backup plan, and I've been working on it. So I think he just wanted to build up that little, if you wanted to call it a trust fund or an emergency fund, that he was working with the warden and saying like, yeah, once I leave, I'm taking the money with me. So I want to think that the tunnel was already done, and he just was biding his time. He's like, okay, I just need to make enough money so I can get out of here. This is like my retirement fund. So I wanted to think that the tunnel was done already, but at the same time, other people might argue like, no, he was just finished, or he had just worked on it and he was just about to break through, and that's when he got fed up and he decided to make a break for it. So what do you think? Was the tunnel finished beforehand, or he had just finished it right before he left?
Well, it was about 19 years when he decided to escape through that tunnel. I don't know, like, he's always talking about this idea of having hope. Based on that concept, I don't think he was just done digging through the tunnel right around the time he actually escaped. I felt like it was already probably done, for a good while. And like how you put it, he was just bidding his time. The way I look at it really is the timing. Like, it's too coincidental if he did finish right around the time that he actually escaped, because his motivation to leave was after he found out from Tommy that, another convict from the prison that he came from committed to the murder of his wife and the person who would, who was cheating with his wife, right? So, yeah. I felt like that was too convenient for Tommy to have, talked to the warden, and the warden, killing Tommy so that, Tommy wouldn't say anything about it. And then, when Andy found out about that and told the warden, that this was his chance to actually leave the prison, the warden was going to hold him back because of this, because the warden wanted to still take advantage of his laundering scheme. So I felt like it was just too convenient for everything to like fall into place around the exact same time for me to believe that he was done right around the time when he was going to escape. I felt like it was probably already done.
Yes.
And that thing about hope, that thing when if the chance finally came where he had a legit reason, a legit excuse for leaving the prison, that the warden denied him of that. That was when he got motivated to finally leave. So that's how I saw it.
That's the same way I see it. He just either he wanted to take that easy way out, saying, look, I'm going to clean my name, walk out of the front doors, a free man. Or are you going to give me that chance? The warden said no. He's like, okay, I'll take it. I have a backup plan. Don't worry about it. Like, that's how I see it. The same thing, like when you said it wasn't that he just finished, because I mean, when we see him going through the tunnel and then he exits, he falls on top of the pipe. Lightning storm is a proper situation for him to, escape. But at the same time, he had put the shoes on before and he already planned to escape that night. Maybe there was a forecast and he knew the storm was coming or something. But I'm just saying, like, my bottom line is the tunnel was already finished and it was just sitting there for him for the right moment. The way I want to describe this movie, it's, first of all, it's narrated by Red. And I love when Morgan Freeman narrates stuff because it gives me like this calming feeling, His voice is really soothing, it's calm, it's not rushed, it's paced, it's the right amount of tone, high and lows. Like you said, this movie was not rushed. It's a movie that captivates you. There's not a lot of action, there's not a lot of things, but everything else is just captivated by the narration and the actual scenes you see on the screen. To me, this movie, if I can sum it up in a sentence, I would just say it's like friendship story between two men who they come from different worlds and they meet inside jail and they become best friends. So in a sense, it's like a little love story, but in friendship way kind of thing. Like they're bros, they become tied and everything, So they kind of depend on each other. We see Andy sticking out for the guys when he gets some beer, and then the guys come around like, hey, he's a cool guy. But Red, he even said it since the beginning. He's like, I actually liked Andy since the beginning. So in my mind, this is like Red's memoirs after they go to Mexico in the Pacific Ocean and they're sitting there and then they probably died or something, and then somebody finds a journal, and it's Red's journal. He talks about their story, like, let me tell you a story. And I'm like, this is how I see it. I'm like, I want to say somebody was strolling by the beach, they found his journal and they read it, and this is Andy's and Red's friendship story. What do you think, Touly?
This kind of reminds me, in a sense, actually one of the few Adam Sandler movies that I enjoyed, the Longest Yard, where it was between him and Chris Rock. Yeah, so it kind of reminded me of that, you getting to know people in prison and you finding that one person who you can rely on. They'll watch your back, you'll watch theirs. We see what happened to Red and Andy at the end. They meet up. When they did like that, it made me think about the other guys who Andy and Red were, part of a group of. The guys who, for example, one of them picked up a rock and, we're going to give this to, or actually all the guys who, picked up rocks to give it to Andy so he could, carve chess pieces out of them or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, these guys, you see Andy kind of show appreciation for when he, asked the guards, hey, after we finished with our job up here, because Andy was going to help him with the tax evasion ordeal, that, give these guys some beer and stuff, which, showed some sense of kindness, some sense of appreciation from Andy, because these guys were helping him out. I wish he would have done a little bit more for these guys. I mean, it's kind of hard because there was like a good, 4 or 5 of them all together. I feel like Red got the special treatment because they were closer, but I wish Andy would have done a little bit more for these other guys too. I don't know, that's just how I personally feel, because I feel like these other guys were instrumental to Andy's success and his time in prison as well. That's how I personally felt. Although I did mention that Tommy did play a critical role in this film, the creative side of me felt like his character was a little of a convenience, because his job really, to me, the way I looked at it, was to be that guy who got that information, would have helped Andy escape, right?
Yeah.
They tried to make his character be more meaningful because, there was the whole GED test that he wanted to pass, and Andy got involved by helping him study. So they tried to make that relationship a little more close so that you as an audience could feel more for Tommy, especially when Tommy ends up dying. But let's say that Tommy didn't have that information about, the other convict knowing or saying that he was the one who was guilty of the crime. Tommy wouldn't be as meaningful as a character as he was. So in that retrospect, I wish film, and I guess, like you said, this is based off of one of Stephen King's work. I wish this revelation of this other guy being guilty of the crime and Andy was actually an innocent man, that information would have been somehow communicated in a different way. For example, say it was Red who found out about this information somehow, just seeing some paperwork or whatever. And then now Red is entangled into this mess and, he might end up dying or whatever. Make it a little more interesting rather than just having a character being introduced somewhere around the middle of the movie, and his role pretty much being that guy who has that pivotal information that will help Andy escape. That's just how I feel from like a creative side.
I want to go and take the other side of the coin on that. I think kind of a good idea to introduce him, because Andy took time out of him and invested in this kid to get his degree, right? Once he succeeded, he found out that, oh, this guy has information. He went to the warden, and the warden said, no, I'm going to throw you in the hole, kind of thing. Like, he knew that. He's like, okay, you don't want to let me go because you don't want me to leave or talk about the laundering money. He's like, okay, I'll stay. Doesn't matter, but you're not going to give me the chance to clear my name. Once he got out and he heard that Tommy got killed, that was the last straw, and that's what motivated him to get out of there. If he wouldn't, he would have probably stayed. He would have kept, helping the guys. He would have kept, after he finished with Tommy, he would have gone with another guy, helped him to read, helped him to get a GED or something. Like he said, Red said, Andy took it. He knew he had time, and he passed his time by having projects. First it was the library, then it was this, it was that. Tommy was one of the projects. So once he finished with Tommy, there should have been somebody else. So it was just a way of him keeping himself busy. So in that sense, he said, I'm out of here. I'm going to send the papers to the newspaper. You're going down, and I'm going to escape scot-free. I think that's what Tommy's role was. It was like a catalyst for him to get his plan in motion. I don't know if you see it that way, but to me, that's how it stood out. Because if it was Red who would have died, that would have hit me harder, and at the same time, like, it wouldn't make sense because I'm like, who's narrating, kind of thing, So it's that thing. But I do get that you said some of the characters who got introduced might have not been introduced in the right way. Maybe, and I'm just putting this out there, I haven't read it. Maybe Stephen King's work does dive more into Tommy, or dive into how the news got out, and the other guy. Maybe there's more than just talking to the warrant once and say, hey, I know this guy is out there. Give me a chance to prove my innocence. Maybe in the novel, there's a little more to that. So maybe it was just not incorporated into the movie. So I don't know. I'm just saying, maybe.
Yeah, I just felt like, I understand what Tommy's role was. I completely understand that. Like I said, this is more from like a creative side, where I feel like Tommy's appearance in the movie was too short for me to personally feel that he was like a very important character, other than him holding this information. Had it been somebody who I've seen more so from like the beginning of the film, or somewhere where I felt like Andy had developed a closer relationship to, then I would have felt like his role would have been like kind of, it would not have been like so convenient. That's how I'm describing it.
Yeah.
Like it felt like, here's Tom. Here's our guy. He's the guy who's gonna shake things up. Let's just insert him now. Versus, let's say Tommy was introduced somewhere closer to the beginning of the film, and somehow Tommy and Andy were getting along, but then Tommy comes to reveal that, hey, he wants to pass his GED or whatever, and then Andy starts teaching him, versus him just being inserted towards like the middle of the film. That's where I'm coming from.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, that does make sense. Oh, and here's another little trivia fact based on the Stephen King's novel. Red was actually a white middle-aged Irishman with graying red hair. That's why his name was Red. But in the movie, it's Morgan Freeman. But here's the funny thing. In the movie, when Andy goes up and asks him, why do they call you Red? And he says, maybe it's because I'm Irish. That's a joke put in there saying that in the Stephen King's, in the book, Red is actually an Irish guy. So it's kind of funny because when the director was writing the script, he had in mind to have Morgan Freeman play Red, but he didn't know how to work it in. I was like, okay, this is either hilarious as hell for people who know the Stephen King's work, but it also plays, like, even when I was watching it, I'm like, oh, look, it's Morgan Freeman, he's trying to be a smart ass kind of thing. So in a sense, to me, that was kind of funny. But then when I found out it was based on the original character from the original story, it was even more hilarious. Because I'm like, oh, here the director is putting a joke in there. Like, it works. I think this movie is, to to me is one of the greatest Stephen King's work adaptations into a movie. I've said that before. I want to put this out there. Right recently, in July 25th, Hulu came out with a new TV series called Castle Rock that's produced by J.J. Abrams. It's basically takes place in the same jail, in the Stephen King's multiverse. So if you know Stephen King's work, you know that all his movies and stories that we've seen on TV or in books are interconnected in the multiverse that he calls himself. He calls it Stephen King's multiverse. They're connected one way or another. The Dark Tower is connected to The Shining. The Dark Tower is connected to the It movie with Pennywise. The Mist is connected to Pennywise in one way or another. And I want to say that if you guys are Stephen King's fans, you should check this out. It's a TV series on Hulu produced by J.J. Abrams. It's out since July 25th. Give it a try. See what you think of it. And maybe if you find, little hints in there about Andy or Red. Okay, so now we're going to give this movie its final grade. Touly, what did you give this movie?
Easily a 9 out of 10. It's a movie that I can find myself rewatching, easily recommending to other people who have not seen it before. This is one of those films where I could be like on a lazy Sunday, ask friends to come over and just hang out and watch the movie, because I feel like they would like this film just as much as I do. So yeah, 9 out of 10, easily.
Well, with me, it's the same grade, 9 out of 10. I agree with you. It's a movie that you can just play, easy to follow, not a lot of action that you need to capture. The other thing is that I really like this movie, how it ends. And to me, in my mind, it continues from there. Like, to me, 9 out of 10 easily. With that, we wrap up this Throwback Thursday episode of the Shawshank Redemption. Join us next time when we review Braveheart. And social media is down in the description. Hit us up if you have any questions. And remember, keep watching movies.